Hi, this is Kara from Horror Retrospective here with you for Women in Horror Month, along with the horror miser Monty G.
Y'all ready for this? Hey, horror fans! Once again, it is me, the horror miser Monty G. Hey, horror fans! Once again, it is me, the horror miser Monty G. Yes, continuing celebrating the month where we celebrate Women in Horror Month, and this time I brought them on another one of my favorite horror girls. This is Kara from Horror Retrospective. How you doing today, Kara?
Doing all right. Glad to be here.
Good. Yes. Obviously, I decided to go on ahead and decide to pick you, just like I did. Now, last year, what I did was I interviewed four lovely ladies who have horror YouTube channels, and I decided to do this again this year. Now, you and I, we've actually been friends for a long time right now. We actually done some live streams. Well, of course, with my good friend Mark, the movie channel. He's such a fine guy, right there. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, as being a woman, what do you, this overall question, how do you feel about how women are treated in horror films and the fact that we now celebrate this? What do you feel about them celebrating women in horror films?
I think it's come a long way. I think of Night of the Living Dead and how Barbara's character, she was very much a damsel in distress, and we've had stronger final girls, some who really hold their own, and others who, like Nancy Thompson, they use like booby traps to outsmart the villains. So I think they've gone a long way.
Yes, as a matter of fact, one of my friends I actually interviewed earlier today, she said that when she saw A Nightmare on Elm Street, that was her first horror film, that she was about 6 years old when she saw it. And she said that really inspired her to become a good woman because of what Nancy did in that particular film. So I thought it was a great example about
Mhm.
how you see this girl, this woman who decides to, go on ahead and fight the monster Freddy and do these great things instead of being the typical damsel in distress. That she inspired her to become a real good woman.
Oh, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, see that. But yeah, I do like how it's gone to where women are no longer seen as, like these weak little creatures. They can outsmart and they can defend themselves, or even Ellen Ripley or Sarah Connor, where they can actually just get in there and fight with the villain.
Hmm. Yeah, I was talking to Jen last night. She said that's one of the reasons why she loves horror film because we need some more kick-ass, kick-ass women in horror.
Yeah, I think it's a good example for young girls. Like, don't see yourself a certain way, or don't see yourself the way you're told to see yourself. Like, actually realize that you are capable of so much more.
Hmm. So one of the things I always ask, women this particular question since I started doing this, as being a woman and being a woman, what, of all the genres of horror, all the genres of film, why did you decide to pick horror? What guides you to horror of all aspects of film?
I grew up with a lot of horror films playing in the house, so it was familiar to me. I come from a horror household.
Everyone was any particular horror film that your family was seeing that they allow you to watch? What type of horror film were they watching that piqued your interest?
um, I mean, I've seen some of the very early stuff when it was first out, like Poltergeist, or I remember the second Nightmare on Elm Street growing up. The especially that scene by the pool with the fire in the background, very iconic.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching that as a kid. The first one that I'm told that I watched was Troll, the Charles Band film.
Oh, that one. That was actually kind of funny though. I actually like that one though. Although Troll 2 is the one that gets more talked about because it was such a bad but fun film.
Yeah,
But yeah, but Troll was actually pretty good. I actually did enjoy Troll when I first saw it.
yeah. Um, I wanted to like it, but I think they're both equally as bad. But I enjoy Ghoulies 2 a lot better than Troll 2.
Yeah, True Ghoulies was, I call that the Gremlin ripoff.
Yes.
That's what I figured because it's like, oh wow, they're trying to rip off Gremlins, but it was still a fun film. I actually like both Ghoulies and Ghoulies too.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize it's another Charles Band film.
Oh yeah, he definitely made a lot of horror films, especially during the 80s.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Was there any other particular film that got you into horror? Was just that you just was so exposed to horror? How old were you when you were watching all these horror films?
Um, I know I was really little. I know Poltergeist was probably, I was too young for that, but I remember watching that when it was out on video.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't my mom, then it was my brother. Someone was watching a horror movie in the house, so it's just something that I'm used to. I like the genre, and also just the memories, like just times that we would spend together, or just even going back now and rewatching a movie and thinking to myself, well, I watched this for the first time with my mom, and I was X years old, or something. So it's also the nostalgia part of it that I enjoy.
Okay. Was there now, growing up and watching horror? Was there any particular subgenre of horror that you preferred to watch more, or did you just simply just love horror because it was just horror?
I liked it because it was horror. I really didn't get into subgenres until I want to say sometime in high school.
Hmm.
Yeah. High school, college, that's when I really started getting into subgenres. Like I love surrealist film. I like psychological thrillers. My current favorite is religious horror.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. A lot of people get afraid when it comes to religious horror. Was there anything about religious horror that drew your attention to it? Wasn't because of The Exorcist, was it?
No, that's actually the first film that ever scared me.
Ooh, not
uh,
surprised.
yeah, I've watched a lot of movies, and that was the first one that it had me just like curled up in my chair with my feet up.
What scene was it? Because they didn't have the spider walk. Did you saw the film when they had the spider walk in it, or what particular scene scared you the most?
I watched the original first. I had rented it from the local video store.
Hmm.
And then when it was later released on VHS, I did see the director's cut. Although back then it was called the version you've never seen. Now it's the version everyone's seen.
Hmm. Yeah, because I always tell people, as a child from the '70s and having to snuck in because my mother thought I was too young to see The Exorcist, but me and my friends snuck in to go see it. And I always tell
Mhm.
people, I said, yes, the theater was that crowded, and yes, when certain scenes came up, people threw up, they screamed, they ran out of the theater, they never
Oh,
came back. And yeah, that actually happened. It's like it's a fascinating to actually see it happen, to
mhm.
experience that all that craziness that movie did. Because no one, I mean, strictly no one saw a movie like The Exorcist, until that came out.
No, no, I don't think there was anything like it before or after. I mean, there were so many Exorcist wannabes, but they just couldn't do it.
Mm-mm. Oh no! Oh yes, because I remember there was a black exploitation film called Abby. After that came out, and
Oh,
they tried, they tried. I mean,
oh,
just as bad as what they did with Blackula and then Blackenstein. It's
yes,
like, well,
I've seen that. I want to say there's a Jekyll and Hyde black exploitation, but I haven't found it yet.
I haven't found it yet neither. 'Cause I know someone was telling me about that, but I haven't found that one because I know they got Blackula, Scream, Blacklist, Scream, yeah, Blackenstein, JD's Revenge, and I can't remember there's Abby. I knew there's some other black exploitation film that came out during the '70s, but I can't remember. But I don't remember being in a black exploitation film of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. But I know I'm pretty sure it was made.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I found out about it recently. I was like, why have I never heard of this? I've heard Blackula. I have both films. I love Pam Grier.
Hmm.
Um, I've seen Blackenstein, which I thought was funny, but
Oh yes.
yeah, I've never heard of the other one,
Mm-mm.
the Jekyll and Hyde one.
Yeah. So when it comes to women in horror films, as far as what we've seen so far, from like say from the Universal Pictures, we've always seen being the damsel in distress up until what we now have the much more smart and aggressive final girls. Do you think women are now being portrayed better as opposed to what they were back in during the Universal days when it comes to horror films?
I want to say so. I don't watch modern films too often, but it's been a
Mm,
long while since I've seen a weak female character like the cliche too scared to fight or defend herself type woman. I haven't seen anyone written like that in a long time.
mhm. Yeah, because I think women have become a little bit more respected when it comes to horror films, and as opposed to what we normally saw, especially during the '80s,
Hmm.
when you had the typical when we had the typical slasher film, where unfortunately we always had to see nudity from women. And, you couldn't have a slasher film about women displaying their chests or their
Yeah.
or in their chests. It's like can't be. It's like women were objectified. Do you think that was a reason most people didn't like horror films because they would seem like the only thing we could do is have a woman expose herself in horror films?
I want to say it's more of an 80s thing. Like
Mm.
I still see it here and there sometimes, just not as much. So I mean, some of the sexualization is still there, but I haven't noticed it as heavily, or if there's a shower scene, it's not as long as they used to be.
Yeah, because I was one of the things I was quite amazed Alfred Hitchcock cycle when Norman kills a witch bomb in the shower. We see her everything, but we don't see any nudity in the film. And I thought they did a good job, even though she's obviously supposed to be naked, but actually did a pretty good job in it. And it
Mhm.
doesn't, it's still such a terrifying scene, but they actually did a pretty good job without showing any nudity. Unfortunately, you can't do that now, or
No,
especially during the '80s. No, for some reason, you have to have nudity in the film.
I mean, I'd love to see a tasteful throwback to where you can still see nudity, but it's not about the just looking at the flesh, but it's, part of the scene to where it's actually shocking the same way it was done in Psycho.
I see. Because one of the other problems I have when it comes to women portrayed in horror films, I don't know if you ever saw Jessica's Body.
I haven't seen it.
I mean,
I've been watch
Jennifer's
it.
Body. Jennifer's
Yeah,
Body.
I know what you meant. Yeah, I've been wanting to watch it for years and I still haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, it's amazing because the director, Da- Diablo Cody,
Mhm.
obviously said that the film was supposed to be the friendship about with Jennifer and Needy, but unfortunately, obviously the men or the studio had said, in order for us to sell this picture, in order
Mhm.
to get adolescent or teenage boys to go see it, we have to, promote Megan Fox in a sexy outfit, and then because they had that makeout scene between her and Amanda Siegfried for about 50 minutes, and he knew that we got to get them to come see that. And I said, that's not what the film is about.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't think they really had to play that up. I think young men would have gone anyway just because it's a pretty girl.
mm. Yeah, that's one thing. It's like, yeah, you got Megan Fox on the cover. You don't have to try to have her dress up in a sexy outfit. Just make her look attractive. You know, just make the movie about what it's supposed to be. And I think that's the reason why the film didn't do as well because it was a pretty good film. And I thought both Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried did a good job acting wise. And it's a shame that unfortunately, because of how that film was marketed, it missed the mark. And I feel as though that's a problem when you have men trying to just talk about a female friendship and they don't get it right.
Mhm.
You know, do you think that when it comes to portraying women, and obviously this was a male dominated field, do you think men have a problem trying to write and show women in horror, especially in horror films?
I think it depends on the person. Like, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I know women have been well written in the past. They're still well written. I think it just depends on the maybe the person's emotional intelligence of how well they understand women or
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I think it's possible for a man to write a very well structured female character and still have her be believable and even for, women to enjoy that character.
Hmm. Yeah, because I think at times when I look at someone like I look at Jordan Peele and how well he did with us character in The Young and the Pungo in that particular character, I thought he did a fantastic job in displaying that character.
Mhm.
Just wish that it was more men like that where they don't, where the women care when the women uh, actually are very smart and they don't make dumb decisions.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, one of the things, obviously, when it comes to horror films, obviously one of the biggest trope is the final girl. Do you actually have a final girl that you always like to see in horror films, or?
I like the strong female examples. I mean, I like Nancy Thompson because she was one of the first smart final girls that I ever saw in film.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I lean more towards Sarah Connor, Ellen Ripley, like the kick-ass women.
Hmm.
You know, someone that I myself can look up to and admire.
Yeah, because I think that's the reason why I liked Friday the 13th Part 2, because of what Amy Steele did with her character. I think she was one of the first smart final girls in horror, because she was able to understand Jason and try
Hmm.
to, take advantage of being his mother, you know.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah, but I think one of the things I see about Final Girls is that they are finally, when we got from Laurie Strode all the way now to Sydney Prescott. I think Final Girls have evolved. Do you think Final Girls have evolved? Obviously from Laurie Strode up to Sydney Prescott.
I'd say so. Like Sydney Prescott, same thing. She would outsmart people. She would fight back.
Mm,
But maybe it's the unpopular opinion, but I think Laurie Strode was still very much the damsel in distress. I mean, she would run and hide. She was looking after the kids like she was supposed to, but
mm-hmm.
he really didn't fight back or use, her brains to outsmart Michael Myers or anything like that. He was chasing her through the whole movie and she was screaming.
Yeah, but I don't know why she gets and nothing against Jamie Lee Curtis. She did a wonderful job in the role, but it's just like when everyone loves seeing her.
Hmm.
Um, I guess that's why a lot of people. I don't know. Did you ever see the Halloween trilogy? From Halloween Kills to Halloween Ends. You ever see those three films?
I haven't seen the 2018. I did see the last two, and in Halloween Kills, I still didn't like Jamie. She was in her bed the entire time on drugs, and it's like, you're the star of this. Get up. She didn't get moving until the tail end when she, gives her an injection and gives herself an injection in the posterior. But
uh,
she's in her hospital bed the entire movie, and I'm like, I'm supposed to root for you. You're the hero.
I think a lot of people didn't like that. To me, when it came to that, I think what David Gordon Green was trying to do, I think he was just trying to show that this was just a Michael film. It's not
Hmm.
about Laurie Strode. This is about Michael, and that's the reason why it's called Halloween Kills. Because to me, it was the most brutal what I've seen Michael in a Halloween film since Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. So that's the reason we really don't get to see Laurie that much.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just habit. At least for myself, I hear Halloween and I think Laurie Strode. I need Laurie. She's part of the formula.
Hmm. I know, because a lot of people complained about with Halloween Ends because they thought they were going to get this so-called final battle between Michael and Laurie.
Hmm.
And I had to let people know, and not to beat a dead horse, because a lot that movie had a lot of controversy when it came to that particular film. But I
Hmm.
said you have to understand, she's in her 60s, 70s, and he's in
Yeah.
his 60s. They're not young people. You
No.
can't have this drawn out battle when people are in their 60s and in their 60s. Michael, he still hasn't recovered being beat up at the end of Halloween Ends. So you're really not going to get that so-called final battle.
Yeah.
I don't know why people think that there's supposed to be this final battle, because like everyone wants to see this final battle between Nancy and Freddie.
Uh, I think it's the same thing. I mean, it'd be hard to not make it drawn out, but then if it's too long, it's not believable.
Hmm. Okay.
I mean, especially because Freddy's timeline was never rewritten, so he's still supernatural.
Yeah, one of the things I actually find fascinating when it comes to horror films and women is we've seen not much, but I would say mothers trying to protect their sons, and there was a lot of mothers, or I would say bad mothers. What do you think of that as particular way as a mother being displayed in a horror film? Like say, like obviously Friday the 13th and some other horror films where the mother is unfortunately a doing the right thing, but not doing the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, I could understand like the whole vengeance aspect of it, but I mean, it doesn't really make sense to me why she would wait so long and then they try to reopen the camp and then why come back? I mean, that's a whole different group of people. They didn't do anything to your kid.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean resentment, but I mean, I'm not a mom, so I mean, I can't really I can't really relate on, where she's coming from.
Hmm. Well, yeah, that does, but you do make a fascinating point. It's like, if you blaming the camp on what would happen to Jason, I don't think you would wait all this time and all of a sudden just going on this killing spree.
Mhm.
But obviously, whatever happened, which is going to be interesting, is supposed to be coming up with this Crystal Lake, which supposed to have, I guess, shows the backstory about what actually happened to Jason and
Mhm.
what happened, what eventually caused Mrs. Voorhees to finally go crazy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's implied, but we really don't know how long she had been off her rocker.
Hmm. So, as a woman and loving horror, what decided you to actually be make a YouTube channel?
I love having projects and hobbies. Originally, I started off as a goth model, and then it just became to where I didn't have time to do that anymore. And I'm like, okay,
Mm,
well, what can I do that's fun that I would enjoy? And I'm like, at that point, I remembered in college I was writing horror film reviews, and I'm like, well, I can do that. I see people do that on YouTube. That looks like fun. So I decided to get into that, and my first review was back in 2011 for the original three sleepaway camp films.
mhm. Yeah, because I remember seeing some of the early videos on your channel. I said, "Wow, this woman's very talented." I like the makeup effects that you did. I mean, did that take you long to put the makeup effects on?
It took a while to learn how to do it. I think the first time I tried, it took me about 3 hours, and then it was also just trying to learn. Okay, well, not same thing as makeup foundation that women use, but obviously theatrical makeup. It's not all the same, so I had to find what worked best with my skin type.
Hmm. Yeah, I said, "Wow, this is fantastic. I like this." I think that's one of the reasons that drew me to your channel was the fact that you actually look. I love the fantastic look that you had. It actually reminded me of the I think it was Lord of the White Worm. I think
Uh-huh.
that's what I don't know if that's where you got the inspiration from, but you definitely gave me vibes of that.
Yeah, I was definitely going for a snake look.
Mm, yeah. So you've been on YouTube for a while, and of course, as a female, as a woman who does horror, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure, just like I don't know if you ever experienced having any trolls or gotten any bad stuff when it comes to because it seems like most people do not respect women into horror. And in the horror because they think as though women are not supposed to love horror. They're supposed to, be nice and play with their Barbie dolls or don't do something like hard. Did you ever experience that, as far as you've been on YouTube before?
No, I haven't. But I was lucky enough to be surrounded by people. Like some people would message me like, "Hey, there's this troublemaker going around. You might as well block him now because they're saying stuff like this to these other people."
Hmm.
So I was lucky enough to where people would give me a heads up, and I haven't had like any trolls or anyone just trying to be a creep or anything like that.
Hmm. Yeah, because I think you're a very talented woman. I think you always love listening to your opinions. As far as what you have to say on horror, on the horror, and I obviously love you having on the horror hangout stream. It's
Mhm.
like this. You're here to listen to what she has to say, not about how she looks or whether she's right or wrong. You're just here to look at her opinion. How
Mhm.
she looks or whatever she's saying. You don't. That's what you're supposed to do. That's why I don't like because unfortunately, my mother raised me to respect women. That's one of the reasons why I admire women who actually do love horror, and I love
Yeah.
women who admire women who have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I mean, in real life, I don't run across too many women that like horror.
Mm.
I mean, I'd still like to, but yeah, they're easier to find online than in person.
Yeah, because that's going to be another my question. As a woman, do you find it difficult in real life, as opposed to being on YouTube, to actually see people that enjoy horror like you do?
You mean like if people online enjoy film as much as I do? I'm not sure if I understood your question.
No, it's like because with me growing up, and I never, everyone called me weird and crazy, and they say, "Money,
Mhm.
what the hell's wrong with you? Why you like all that stuff like that?" I really couldn't get to talk about horror until I got on YouTube and got into the horror community. Did you have that same experience because you love horror, but couldn't find anyone to talk about horror or enjoy horror like you did?
Um, no, like I really didn't have anybody in school. Like no one thought I was weird for liking horror because I didn't really talk about it. I would have like Goosebumps books or R.L. Stein, and I mean, you could tell I liked scary stuff, but
Hmm.
um, no, nobody really gave me trouble about it. I mean, some kids would talk about, like the latest movie with me or here and there, but it was never to where like you're one of those weird Stephen King kids, aren't you?
Yeah, because I got that a lot because I bring my Stephen King book and people look at me. It's like, you like Stephen King? You like that weird shit? I'm like, I find it funny because I had a morbid sense of humor growing up. I didn't
Yeah.
watch all that nice stuff like that. I don't want to see The Wizard of Oz or anything like that. Let me watch a monster film. Let me see this film. Let me see that film. Let me read Stephen King. That's what I
Mhm.
like.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it now as an adult and I'm like, people should have been more concerned with, well, at least they're motivated to read instead of, you shouldn't be reading that stuff. It's not safe.
Yeah, I know, because a couple people looked at me and said, "You sure you want to read that?" I says, "Why not?" It's like I never had an issue as far as what was real and what was fantasy. I knew that vampires weren't real. I knew zombies weren't real. So it's like I didn't have that problem. I knew how to. I knew even as a young kid, I knew that wasn't real. So you
Yeah.
know, I didn't have that problem. But for some reason, people just thought it's because I know I had a Stephen King book or I was watching horror films, and it's like something's wrong with you. I said, no, it's not. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
I just like watching horror.
Yeah. I think I was about in fifth or sixth grade when I started carrying Stephen King books around at school. Um, Pretty much the only thing I ever really got in trouble with was for having issues of Fangoria. They're like, that's inappropriate. You shouldn't be bringing that here.
Yeah, because unfortunately, I did that one time. I had a Fangoria book, and I think it was right at the time when an American Werewolf in London was coming out, and they had pictures of some of the practical effects, and I had it open up, and a couple people walked by me, and I scared a couple people.
Yeah.
I, I scared a couple people, and they said, "Look," they said, "Monty, what the hell are you watching?" I said, "This is nothing." I said, "This is fun." But I
Hmm.
scared a couple girls, and somebody came up to me and told me not to read that book anymore in front of
Yeah.
everyone. I said, "Oh man, what are you going to do?" So, one of the last things I'll probably ask you is, what do you expect to see out of women when it comes to horror films? And now, I mean, obviously now we've gotten to the point where women seem to be more respected in films. We've seen whether in the front of the camera or behind the camera, we have some great women directors. I mean,
Hmm.
even from Mary Lambert from the original Pet Cemetery, we have some great women writers. I was talking to Jen the other night about I forgot her name that wrote *Malignant*, and
Hmm.
uh, and she did the person that directed the new Candyman. What do you expect to see from women coming in the future when it comes to horror films?
I mean, I'd love to see. I because I still notice I gravitate towards male writers, directors. I'd love to see more women in the field.
Hmm.
I'd like to have to be able to say at least other than the Saskas, but I'd love to say, I really enjoy so and so's film. I've followed their career from this movie up until this, and I've watched just about everything that they've done. I mean, I do that with horror actresses, but somebody behind the scenes. I'd love to have that experience to where I can say I enjoy more than one or two person's work.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I love the Suska sisters. I mean, other than the last movie they did, which was Rabbit, I've enjoyed all of the films that they've done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I preferred the original on that. And when I first heard about it, I was like, it was also an unpopular opinion at the time, but I was like, my exact thought was, oh no, not them. And it's not that I was putting them down, but I didn't think they were the right people for that film.
Yeah, I kind of okay. I thought what they tried to do was okay. It just I don't know. Something missed the mark.
Hmm.
And something missed the mark. It's not that I have no problem with what they tried to do. It just didn't miss the. I think what they missed the mark when it came to Rabbit. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, something in the story was off.
Mm.
I wanted to like it.
Yeah, so did I, because I know because when I heard it was them, I said, "Oh man, this is gonna be good." And then I watched it, I said, wasn't bad. It's
Yeah.
just like I expected something better.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed all of their other films. I mean, Dead Hooker in a Trunk was fun.
Oh yeah, that was that was fun. I really enjoyed that one. Yeah. So once again, Kara, I want to thank you very much for coming stopping on by. It really was a pleasure to enjoy talking to you about women in horror. If you're not subscribed to Horror Retrospective, oh yeah, by the way, I almost forgot the question. How did you come up with the title Horror Retrospective?
I just like older films,
Mm.
and I kind of model myself after the Joe Bob Briggs, where I like to give factoids about films. So to me, it just made sense. Like I'm talking about films retrospectively, so and I like older films. So I mean, to me, it just made sense. The horror retrospective, kind of like you hear the name and you pretty much know what to expect.
Oh yes, good. Cause that's what I got. I think there's another reason that drew me to your channel when I saw the horror retrospective. I said, well, she must be into old school horror like I am because
Hmm.
I grew up before old school horror. So it's like, do you think that more people should actually watch old school horror to appreciate horror?
I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a prerequisite, but I think you could enjoy horror film a lot more because then you would know where certain references come from or where certain tweaked lines come from. Like even Scream pays homage to Psycho. We all go a little mad sometimes. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
those are things that would just kind of fly over the average viewer's head, but
mm-hmm. Yeah,
even
but
somebody who's into horror or new or coming into it, I think you potentially could enjoy it more if you see the older films because then you could see, well, this influenced that, and you can kind of get more an idea of, okay, what's your style of horror? What do you like watching?
mm, yeah. Well, again, like I said, I do appreciate you coming on. Always a pleasure talking to you. If you're not subscribed to Kara's channel, Horror Retrospective, I will leave a link in the description box below.
That is all we have for you today, and we will talk to you later.
Okay. And once again, my name is Lamont Smith, better known as a horror miser, Monty G, and always remember that horror rules. And I'll see you in my next video, guys. You guys stay safe out there. Peace.